Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. There we are. How are you doing, my friend?
I am feeling fantastic. A little tired, long weekend, but other than that, I'm good. How are you?
I am also great. Fantastic. It is so nice to be here with you.
Yes,
I
same
think
here.
with the previous talk with Linda, we kind of didn't get to go live on Facebook. So I think this time we are actually on Facebook. So I want to say hi. Anybody is there?
Hi.
Hello. We love that you are here and that you are watching this conversation.
Yeah.
Also, something I just quickly want to put out there is in my conversation with Linda at the end, I said we're going to speak to my friend Lindy because she has the most amazing house testimony, but Yami also has an amazing house testimony that we're going to talk about in a bit. But Lindy and her husband has been married for 30 years. So they are on their anniversary in Mozambique on a romantic getaway. So we will get to Lindy at some point, it's just not today. But yeah, Yami, I am just as excited to chat to you. But let's hear just quickly. It's Easter weekend still. It was Easter weekend. What did you do?
Well, I mean, it was a good weekend. It was pretty quiet. We went to the movies twice, which was nice. We don't normally do that. And then we spent yesterday with our church family Easter, and we did Easter egg hunt and crawfish boil. Do you know what crawfish is?
Crawfish.
Yes, so crawfish are they look like these little lobsters, and they boil them and then they spread it out on a table, and then everybody just grabs and eats.
Awesome. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was very relaxing, very good.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yes.
My brother, I'm still staying with my brother, and his two boys were here for the weekend. So we did the Easter egg hunt, which was a lot of fun, but it was raining for 2 out of the 4 days. So this morning they were just like, we need to get out. And I was like, yes, you need to get out.
Yes.
But it was, yeah. And also, Mondays for us is also a public holiday after the Easter weekend. So for us, they're only going back to school tomorrow. So it's kind of getting long, especially with the rain. But here we are.
Yes. Yes.
Here we are.
Yes.
Listen, I am truly excited to talk to you. We've gotten to know each other through WOW World mainly.
Yes.
And it is amazing. I just learned to love you and just learned to care for you and to really see the weight and the glory of God upon your life. So yeah, that's I think the main reason I invited you to here today. I think another thing that really blew me away is the divine inheritance, the flow of the divine inheritance course that you're currently doing at God's house.
Thank you.
And I'm listening to that, and some of the stuff is so deep, and it's really just so. It just challenges my mind and my spirit, and I think I just wanted to. Hey, let's talk about that. So yeah, let's start first. You are a mom and a grandmother.
I am.
You don't look like a grandmother.
So I am married to Omar. We've been married for 14 years now. Wow, I can't believe 14 years already. But I do have a son that's 26 with a grandbaby that's 6 months old, and he's adorable. It's interesting to be a grandma, I will say the least. And then I have a 20-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old daughter. So my kids are very spread out. So I say I have 3 only children.
It's not interesting. While you were talking about it, I'm going to throw a question in there that I haven't actually thought of asking. But I think when you have your own children, you kind of think about a legacy and you kind of think about what's coming. But now that you're a grandmother, do you think differently about that inheritance, about the legacy that you're leaving behind? Is the next generation, did that change the way you think about anything or everything?
Absolutely, because one, I see him now as this clean canvas that is learning. And when I've learned so much and I've grown so much throughout the years that now it's like, okay, I can be a different grandmother for this child and break some of that generational stuff that unfortunately my 2 oldest kids never really experienced, because I was so much into it, to where my 12-year-old Delilah, I hear her speaking and it's like, wow, she understands this. She gets that divine inheritance, living in that divinity, living in the truth of Father, to where my other children have had to learn that and break some stuff just like we did.
Okay, so you think that she is really experiencing it and living it because she's seen you living it, and she is learning with you the new way of doing things.
Absolutely. And that freedom, you know, that just that truth and that freedom in God that, you know, the other two didn't understand, because I was very much stuck in those laws and, you know, and I'll share a little more on that, but even that whole money is the root of all evil. And so they experienced some of that. And Delilah hasn't. It's a complete, she's seen the transformation. So my daughter Allie sometimes gets frustrated because even in the way I parent is different. And I tell her, I say, you have to understand, she has a different mom. I know. And it's kind of mind blowing to even say that. But it's, you know, we've evolved so much that, yeah, Delilah has different parents than the other two did. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, but tell us a little bit, because you have a background in finance. That's what you do, you know, for a living. So tell us a little bit, where are you? What do you do? And maybe also a little bit about Omar. What does he do? Where
Yes,
does he fit in?
absolutely. So I do have my master's in accounting, and I've been doing accounting for maybe 20 years now. It was kind of a career that was thrown at me. Someone started training me and was like, oh, you got this. And then when she passed away, my boss was like, you've done everything else in this company, you can do the accounting as well. And I learned to love it. I love numbers. I actually wanted to be a mathematician. And so numbers is fascinating for me. And so it was easy for me to fall into this career. And so fast forward 20 years later, I work for a seminary, but I also have my own business. I have some clients that I do all their financial reporting. So it's been challenging because as I've gone through this process of thinking of finances differently, I have to think about it differently, even for my clients, even for my life, even, you know, even in my career, being an accountant, that is so black and white. When I tell people I'm an accountant, some people get blown away. They're like, oh, you can't, you know, because I have my hair shaved on, like, you don't look like the typical accountant. And I'm like, I'm not, I'm a supernatural accountant.
That was actually one thing I was thinking about, you know, because when I think about accountants, exactly like you say, black and white, you know, there's an explanation for everything. If you can't explain it, it's probably not true. But now, how do you marry that black and white life with the supernatural life where everything isn't always explainable, you know, where the budget and the, you know, and the the credits and the debits doesn't always match up? How do you marry those two?
So what I've learned to do is when I speak to some clients and they're talking about budgeting, I always tell them to think about the numbers they dream of and not the numbers they think or what they're used to seeing. Because why not take it another level? We're creators. So part of that is creating the income for your business and understanding that you have that divine inheritance. So I've had to break that mold of, oh, well, this is what the forecast has been so many years. And this is, you know, the way it's looked for so many years. And let's just be very conservative. But the truth is, there is no limit when it comes to him. And so this has been a challenge for me in my personal finances as well as business finances, of everything is available to us. And so even though the checks and balances are there, even the reporting is there, but seeing a limitation, I no longer see that. And it's interesting because I help two ministries. I do the finances for wildlife, and I also do the finances for God's House, which is my local church. And I've had to see that, you know, where it's like, oh, wait, don't freak out on the numbers, because that's not my limitation. And seeing beyond that and not tying an emotion to it either. That's been a big.
We're going to come back to this emotion thing. That's that one. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, but I want to dive in deep quickly. So you and Omar have a story about God showing up supernaturally. When you guys almost lost your house. And I want to
Yeah.
go back to the beginning of that story. How did that happen? Where were you guys? How long ago was that? What kind of, how did you get there to before God showed up? What's the story?
Yes. So about 2 years ago, I would say maybe 6 months pre-pandemic, we were in a really tight spot. Omar had his own business. So Omar, just to give a little background on him, he's a hands-on person. He can, rebuild a home, and he currently works installing shades before multi-million homes. And that's his career. He's very hands-on. And so about 2 and a half years ago, he had his own business. And the fear of him having this business and in the funds not coming in the way he expected to come in, really caused him to get to a point that he lost his business. In the same moment that he's losing the business, God is telling me to quit my career in the oil and gas industry, from this corporate job that paid well, that handled our health insurance. And he was like, it's time for you to go. Because one, I was miserable there. I worked many hours, so I didn't get to spend as much time with my family, and my children were miserable seeing me like that. And so when God said that, I'm like, he started speaking to me on a November, and I went in December, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna, God, I'm gonna listen. And I went in and I quit. I went to quit my job, and my boss was like, what are you doing? You're going to get the biggest raise. You're going to get the biggest bonus in the department. You're one of our most important employees. And I'm like, okay, God, how are you going to tell me to quit this? But then all this money is being dangled in front of my face. And so in the midst of all that, because of all those fears and all that stuff, we were also losing our home. We got ourselves into a lot of debt. And it's crazy how that credit is it's pounded so much into our heads that I was paying credit cards and my debt before I was even paying my home. And one day I was like, this is ridiculous. How could I be so worried about a debt and not my home? I mean, either way, I need my roof over my head. And so we fell into this fear. I mean, we felt trapped in this home. We felt like we couldn't do anything. And then the more we felt trapped in all this, the more lack we were experiencing. Because now Omar really wasn't getting any type of business. He wasn't working. And I did end up quitting my job. And the way that happened was, when that happened, my pastor at the time was Darren. And I went up to him and I said, okay, how can God say one thing and then this other thing's happening? He said, well, have you ever thought that God is preparing you and he's helping you? Like, he's giving you a good bonus to help you prepare for that. And so fast forward to March, I was at church. We had a conference at church, and God started speaking to me again about quitting my job. Well, here in the oil and gas industry, they tell you what your bonus is in December, but they don't give it to you till March. And this was a Thursday night. And I remember hearing God say, it's time for, you're going to resign on Monday. And by that time, I was so defeated with everything going on at home that I was like, look, I don't care if we end up in a bridge, if we have to move back to Florida, because we're currently in Houston, Texas right now. If we have to move back to Florida, go back to family, I don't care. God, I'm just going to fully trust you in this. And when I said yes to him, that Friday morning, my bonus check came in. And it was a substantial amount to cover for a few months. And so I was like, it's all that it's that moment of faith, that moment that you say, your voice is louder than anything I'm believing or anything I'm saying in my head. And I got the bonus. I put in my resignation on Monday. And 6 weeks later, I got this position at the Bible seminary. But I had told Omar, I won't settle. I don't want to be back in the corporate world. I want to be close to home. I want to be able to be the mom that I want to be. And everything that I listed, God was like, here you go. And that's everything that he gave me in this position. But it was $20,000 less than what I was normally making. So here we are losing our home. Omar loses business and we're making less money. And now at this point, we're just like, we're just going to live on faith. And sometimes you just have to get to that point. Because the moment you just say, you know what, I give up and I'm going to live on faith, everything starts shifting. And so this awareness started coming into our lives. And then we started realizing that some of the language that we were using, for instance, it was always like, oh, we're so broke. Oh God, we're so broke. And we want this, but we can't. And we stopped saying that. And we started saying, we can't now, but it'll come. And we can't right now, and it'll come. And as soon as we stepped into that faith, we stopped fearing, like we were okay for whatever was coming. Everything started to shift, because now it wasn't us trying to create. Now it wasn't us trying to handle the situation or trying to understand what we had to do or how we were going to do it. But it was just like, we give up. It's on you, God. And so we shifted our minds. We did a settlement with the bank, and we were able to pay off our mortgage, and we were up to date. Omar got this position. It wasn't making much money, but he got, a job. So at least a steady income was coming in. And we just started saying, that's a blessing. And making $20,000 less is a blessing, because at least I'm only 5 minutes from home and I'm not working crazy hours. And we just started seeing the gratefulness and the blessing and everything. And within 3 months, they gave him, I think it was like a $5 increase. That nobody does that. Nobody pays that much. And then within another 3 months, he got another increase. And for the past, he's been there for 2 years. And I mean, I can't even tell you, I think his salary, I would say, more than doubled in the past 2 years. Yes. And yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. It's been such a crazy ride. And then not only was I making a little more and having all this flexibility in this wonderful position, working with these, I mean, I can't even explain how amazing my boss is. I wish he would teach other people how to lead. But then I started getting clients out of nowhere. I started building a business that, Marie, I'm not kidding you, I have never promoted. I have never put an ad out there. I mean, you just created my logo. I never did anything. And it was all by word of mouth. God just started bringing them to me. And now it's pretty successful. And it'll grow more, and then it'll come to a point it won't work for anyone. But it was a moment we let go. The moment we let go, and we shifted from fear to gratefulness. And no matter what it was.
That is so profound, from fear to gratefulness. I want to go back a little bit just to some practicalities, but I also just want to share a little bit of my journey. I think during the pandemic, I was also going through some stuff, and I was also at some stage, I never owned a home, but I was also kind of at the point of losing the place that I was renting, because I just couldn't keep up with the rent, So I was also at a place, and all I heard the whole time that God said to me is, what will you do when you have nothing left?
Mm-hmm.
When there's nothing left to hold on, what will you do? And I was just, and eventually one day I was just sitting outside, and I realized that the only thing that I will have left will have left. Doesn't make sense in my own head now. But anyway, the only thing that will be mine is the breath that He is giving me. And I didn't understand it then, but now I look back and I see, but I have the power to create with that breath. So that was powerful. Anyway, I want to go a little bit back, and because you're an accountant, and because you said that you guys kind of got to this place where you had a lot of debt. And if you look back, there's somebody listening today, what is just some advice that you can say, be careful of this. This is what has gotten us into this space. If you can, don't do this. Please be aware of this, because this was one of the mistakes that we made. Would you be so transparent?
So, oh yeah, absolutely. So my biggest thing, one of the reasons we really got into debt was because we just didn't want to wait. It was this, we want it now, and oh, well, we have a credit card, and just start on the credit card. And look, there is no shame. The biggest thing I want to say is do not feel the shame and the guilt because you do have debt. Okay. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we step into such a shame and such a guilt that it hinders us to see any kind of solution. And then we just keep falling into that same pattern. And so what happened to us was we had such a lack mentality, and it was that whole like, oh, we want this now, but oh God, we're so broke, we have no money. Oh God, that it was like, well, all we can do is put it on a credit card. Well, that just causes burden in our lives. And what was happening was that became my God. That was my solution. Because if I couldn't figure out how to provide it for her now, then I was going to put my trust in that credit card and in that debt. And that's when God said, that's a bigger God than I am. Because you're saying that there's no way I can provide it for you. So you have to rely on these credit cards. And I did something that I don't say everybody need that. Okay, I'm going to share something very personal, and I don't normally share this, but we actually stopped paying credit cards. We lost our credit on purpose. And I'm not saying that's what God told us to do, but it was what I needed to do to break that, because it was such a chain around my neck. It was something that held me down, especially me. I grew up in a home where my father is all about the credit. I mean, that's all he ever speaks about. And so for me to give up that was one of the biggest things I ever had to do. Now, I am still very responsible for my debt. We've actually paid off 50% of it. But at that moment, that's what we needed to do, because the moment I broke that chain, the moment I didn't allow that to be a God in me anymore, God started providing. And it was the craziest thing, Marie, because then we didn't really need credit. We started paying everything cash. I mean, everything. We remodeled our home and it was paid cash. We traveled and it's
the home that you just almost lost.
Yes. And we just remodeled it. And
oh, wow.
What's happened to me is when I step into those fears and I see that a fear wants to kick in, even with spending the cash, I just push through and I do it, because he's just proven to us over and over and over again that he is our provider. So if you have debt and if it happens, look, I get it. We were there and we've done it, but break the chain on it and break that shame. Trust that he's going to provide, and trust that even having the debt is okay. It's okay. Me losing my credit, God said, it's okay, but now you got to take care of it. It's a responsibility for you. And so that's what we've done in the midst of all that. But because we let go, because we don't feel ashamed, something that happened to us this year was we made so much money last year that now we have this huge tax bill this year. And it's funny because at first I was like, oh gosh. And Omar was like, that's actually a good thing. Like, we're making that much money that we're in another tax bracket and we have to pay a lot back. But it's even in that is how Kirby says, neutralize your emotions. It's interesting because even as I saw that was the number that we had to pay, I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. He's going to provide. Something's going to come in miraculously that he's going to provide for that. And so that's things that we just kept seeing. Going back a little bit to remodeling our home, when that happened, we use our savings, because here's another thing. We could never save before. And all of a sudden we have a savings account and we have some investments. And it's just been the moment we let go. And so we started remodeling our home and we redid all the flooring. And of course, when we had to pay out for the flooring, it was quite an amount. And a fear wanted to kick in. Like, what did I just do? How did we just purchase these floors? What are we thinking? And now we're tapping into our savings and even stepping into that fear of tapping into savings, right? And when
we gotta have savings, we gotta have savings, just like
for the rainy day,
credit,
right?
Yes, yeah.
And so when that happened, I looked at Omar and I said, "All right."
Because Sorry, because God doesn't work on rainy days.
That's exactly it. I had
Anyway.
my pastor Darren used to say, if you save for a rainy day, you're gonna get the rainy day.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
Sorry,
know?
I interrupted you. Yeah.
Oh no, you're good. And so when I saw that fear wanted to kick in because I wanted to buy new furniture, I wanted my house to look the way I wanted it to look. And for many years I didn't because the fear. And when that happened, I said to Omar, honey, get rid of all the furniture. And he looks at me and goes, what? I said, get rid of it all except for the girls' bedrooms, because we had done their rooms new a year ago. And he's like, seriously? I said, yes, get rid of it all. So we were literally eating on top of the kitchen counter because we didn't even have a dining room table. And I had to do that. Well, long story short, we remodeled, we bought new furniture, the sofa, I kept looking back and forth, and do I really want to spend that money? And then finally I was like, no, that's what I want, and I'm just going to buy it. And fast forward 2 months later, here comes Christmas time, and Omar gets Christmas bonus. And this year his bonus covered every expense that we spent on the home. Everything. I know.
You got your new home and all the money back.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And it was all the moment that we just fight through the fear, because he said he didn't give us the spirit of fear, right? That's what he says. And that is the truth. We create that fear. And so what I've learned to do is even push through that, neutralize my emotions and just push through it and be like, you know what? I'm just going to trust. And if something happens, it'll be taken care of. It always has. It's not the first time me and Omar struggled with money. We did it when I was pregnant with my child. I lost my job and he was literally making $10 an hour. And here we had 2 kids at home. I'm pregnant, no work, and it's just him providing for the home. And Mark Marie, we never spent a day that we didn't have a meal on our table, or that all our bills were paid, or that our home was paid for. And I have to remember those moments. And I remember every time there was a transition in our life, when we moved here to Texas, even that, we had no funds to move here. We were like, okay, we know that this is God moving us, and this is from one state to another. And we knew it was him. And I don't know how, but every single cent for us to move here, including trucks and renting a home and everything, was covered. Mm. And we had nothing in savings at that time. So when I had to go back to those moments, that was where that light bulb opened. Like, wait, he's always taking care of us. So why do we make him so small in these difficult moments? Why is it that we don't think he can provide, and then we have to figure it out? Because that's the thing. We want to become God and we want to figure it out.
Yep. I think it is amazing. As I listen to you, I just realize how similar our stories is. I get everything you said. I'm like, yes, I know, because I went through it. It feels like God is really just, especially for me today, is just kind of confirming a few things. It's like, I want you to live in freedom. I want you to have what you desire. And yeah, financial freedom is my heart for you, and to be debt free. I think that's the biggest thing is don't get stuck in that debt. But I want to get to the emotions. You spoke about emotions earlier, and how emotion and money go very close. They are very knitted, into each other. And I want to share something is while I was going through my journey, just in terms of finance, especially during the pandemic, God one day showed me that when I think about money, the emotion for me that was attached to that money was shame. Yeah. If I had it, I was ashamed because now I have it. And if I didn't have it, I was ashamed because I didn't have it. Yeah. And somehow that was something that I was brought up with. That was something that was just a part of my life. It was just, and money and that shame thing just always went hand in hand. And God took me through this process to get rid of the shame. And the beautiful thing about Isaiah 61 is he says that for shame, I will give you a double portion. Mm-hmm. So instead of shame, and for me, that was such a shift, and I also had to get rid of everything in my house I think most people know, well, a lot of people know that I kind of pack up my whole house, sold everything, give everything away. And one day I was standing in this empty house and God said, yeah, now you can start to buy again from a place of wealth and not from a place of poverty, because I realized everything in my house was bought from a place of poverty, the poverty mindset. And I bought a lot of stuff, but it was every time it was the cheapest. Every time it was because I can only afford this. And every time, and yeah. So I was just continually attracting the poverty things. And now I'm like, so yesterday I bought, because it's becoming winter here by us, and I bought a gas heater. And when I got home, I said to my brother, these things are for rich people. They are expensive. And I was like, but we are rich people. Yeah, good. Now we have one. But anyway, so that was just me also shifting my mind and also going out and really buying, because I know that God provides and He's a good Father. But anyway, I want to kind of come back to you. You spoke a lot about fear. How did you see in your life that was fear entangled in the decisions you made? I think you said a lot about it, but there's something, I think you carry something about how to break that fear that we have for money. Maybe you want to share a little bit.
Yeah, money is a huge thing because it revolves our lives, right? Everything we do is purchased with that paper. And Omar what Omar showed me was that's just a piece of paper that we use to trade. If I want a service, if I want a product, I'm going to give you paper and we're going to trade it. The problem is that when we don't feel that we have that paper, that we don't have that number in our bank account, that we can't do anything because, you have these things to take care of. And the responsibility, a lot of it creates the fear. And so I didn't grow up in a home of lack. My father was a person that never graduated high school. And he always said, I'm going to make it and I'm going to be successful and I'm going to be wealthy. And he has. I mean, everything he said he's created for himself. So I didn't grow up in that home. But when I started hearing about Jesus and how he was humble and we have to live humble and, money is the root of all evil and to dream big, it's like, how can you be, the rich doesn't go into heaven, right? All those things. And those started creating these fears in my life and this shame of, if I think big, then I love Jesus before anything. So if I think big, if I don't think humble, or if I want the sports car versus a little humble car, then I'm not following my God. I'm just not doing it right. And so that fear started creeping into my life. Well, fast forward 15 years later, what I've learned is that I'm creating with fear. Where every time there's a fear in our lives, we respond with that fear. We respond with that emotion. So what happens if right now you want to buy a shirt, right? But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, next week I have this bill to pay and you have enough, but you also need to save. And if you don't have any savings, you're not responsible. And so you don't buy the shirt and you buy something cheaper. Not what you wanted, but you just buy something cheaper. Well, that is a reaction. Now you've created in your life according to that fear. And so that emotion really stops us from even hearing God. Because if God is the provider of everything, if he says that we have inheritance, that we are divine with him, that he lives within us, right? That he resides and we're one with him and we understand all that. We understand all that here, but those emotions, we've lived with those emotions for so long that it's like we crave it. Well, the moment we step into it, because that's what we know, then what happens, you're going to make a decision according to that fear, according to that emotion. And it's not God's decision. God wants you to have the best. Like he says, he provides for the lilies and the birds and they never worry, correct? Well, that's how we live. But when we have a fear, then what happens? Now we're going to make that decision according to that fear. So now we're saying, okay, God, I really want that shirt. And you can provide that shirt, but my finances don't quite say that because I have to save, because I have a budget, because I, look at my numbers. well, why can't he provide? And who says, and here's what I've learned, that you can buy that shirt that was less expensive, but that shirt, the quality of that shirt is not going to last like the quality of the one that was probably $20 more. Because that's how we think. But the truth is, this is much better for you. And so, and here's, I'm going to tell you an example. So this tax bill, right? I'm on the screen and I'm looking at my taxes and I see this amount and I actually don't react to it. Like I didn't get fearful. I didn't react to it. But inside, my mind was saying, well, why are we not reacting? What do you mean you're not upset about this? How are you not freaking out? Why are you not trying to figure out your budget? Okay. So that was my mind telling me that, but my body was just not reacting. I knew in my heart that this is going to be taken care of and I have nothing to worry about. But because I'm so used to with that reaction, the fear and the problem solver, because that's what I am, then what did I want to do? I wanted to feel that. Like I couldn't comprehend that I wasn't feeling this. And so I planned this trip. I'm going on this trip in June. And it was the same moment that we're planning the trip and I have to pay for the trip was when I did my taxes. And of course, you know, what would someone say? Be responsible. Don't go on this trip. You have this tax bill. And I was like, no, I'm going on my trip because the funds are coming. And so I had to fight my own thoughts and my own emotions. And I'm going on this trip and I'm going to have an amazing time and my tax bill will still be covered. But if I would have made that decision off of fear, then I would have still had to resolve the tax bill. I wouldn't have enjoyed my trip in June. I wouldn't be doing that. And then on top of that, I'm in a stress level. My body's reacting because it's a cycle. Everything is affected by this fear that we have. So when I say that we're creators and that fear creates, yes, because you are going to make decisions based on the fear. Think about that. If you're sad, you make decisions based on sad. So this weekend, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, maybe I should borrow this money to pay this tax bill, right? Reached out to a family member and said, hey, and thankfully they were like, well, we can give you part of it, but let me talk to someone else. And then I sat here and I just shook my head and said, there I go, stepping into my lack and my fear. Because I don't need to borrow the money. I'm trying to figure it out for God. I'm saying, okay, God, I know that you can provide, but let me just help you out. And I'm going to go and ask somebody. Well, that's not what he told me to do. He didn't ask me to get into another debt. He didn't ask me to ask anyone. He simply said to me, believe in me and have faith in me that I will take care of it. And I sat with Omar and I said, ooh, stepping into that fear and that lack again, I almost got us into a mess that we don't need to be in because the money will be there. I mean, we have most of it. So it's not even like I don't have it. We have most of it. More is coming. And I almost made a mistake because I wanted to figure it out for God. And I tell him all the time, I say, you know, God must look at me and go, oh, poor child, you just make it longer and harder.
I think what I'm picking up, or not picking up, what I understand so well is we actually don't understand how willing and how great our Father is.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is thing is we don't understand, first of all, the power for us, you know, I think this, yeah, it's a word that I learned to understand quite recently, is to alchemize that fear into a space where we create from a place of love and a place of understanding that our Father is actually really good. He wants you to go on the trip and he wants the tax to be paid. He doesn't have a limited mind that, hey, Yami, only the tax being paid is for you. That trip, nah, sorry. And there's something about, you know, getting that and understanding that absolute greatness of what a great Father he is. But I quickly want to, before we say goodbye, I want to ask you one thing. we've been talking now about fear, but what for you is a practical way that you kind of stop those thoughts? Do you see them when they come in and like,
Yeah, I do.
hold on.
It's
then
pure
is there
awareness.
something- Yeah. So tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about the awareness. How do you pick it up? And then what do you do to, oh, my voice is going. And then what do you do to kind of alchemize that fear into a place of creating?
So I got a revelation a few years back that God said to me. You know how we say don't use the Lord's name in vain, right? And we've been all taught don't use the Lord's name in vain. And he actually showed me that anything you say, I am, that is not his character. If I say, I am, oh God, I am so broke. I am so fat, because that's something I've used before. I am, and I am, and I am. Anything that I say I am that is outside his character, I'm using his name in vain. Because the truth is that I am wealthy. I am abundant. I am joy. I am everything he is, right? And so when that happened to me, I started realizing, okay, what language am I using? And so, and don't take me wrong, there's moments that I do it, and then after I'm like, oh, why did I just say that? But it's really, and this is what I tell everybody, it's all about the awareness. The awareness in the moment that you're having an experience. How is your body feeling? How are you experiencing? What are your thoughts with it? What are your words with it? And what are you creating? What are you creating? What are you feeling? And when I started becoming more and more aware, like that moment, I mean, I asked for the money. I did. I was going to borrow it and I asked for the money. And then all of a sudden, because I said, God, you just make me aware. And he does. And right there and then he said, let's talk about this, Yami. Was that not lack? Were you not in fear right now? And so if you can, what I tell people is if you can start journaling a lot of these things, because what I've learned is when I have a fear or when I'm upset about something, or I'm just feeling these emotions that are outside of who he is in me, I journal and then I have a conversation with Omar. It's like a complete release for me. Because then I realize, oh, this is my pattern. These are my words. And we're going to change this. So that awareness, journaling, however is best for you to become aware, and just really just tell the spirit within you, reveal it. Don't let it affect me where I'm not aware of what I'm experiencing at the moment, where I'm not aware that I am saying that I am outside of who you are.
That is, yeah. Creating with the I am, that is so profound. Wow.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a favor. Would you mind, because I believe in journaling, I can write books and books full. Would you mind maybe just posting a prompt or two for people on our Facebook page? Just maybe one or two things like, these are questions you can ask yourself about fear and emotions with regards to money, that they can just go back to that and say, okay, these are some questions, answer them and put it in their journals and kind of just kickstart a journey for some people. Would you mind?
No, absolutely. I will put that out there. And then that way, do you want me to send them to you or just put it on the Facebook page?
No, you can just put it on the Facebook page. That would be great.
I'll do that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's really helped me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think then just the last question, I think I don't want to take too much of your time any further, but if we talk about financial freedom, I know what it looks like for me, but if you have to kind of just give a description of what financial freedom looks like for Yami and Omar, what does that look like?
It's taking away any limitations. Even if you make a salary a year, don't make that your window. Don't make that edge where it's like, okay, this is all I make and this is all I can spend on, because there is no limitation. That's just a number that he's giving you. That's something he's provided for you for now, but it doesn't mean he can't provide more. It doesn't mean, so to make a long story short, just an example, that trip to Mexico that I'm doing in June, I didn't even end up paying it. Someone gifted me the prize. Someone gifted me the trip. And so, and it's that. Do not set limitation. I used to budget everything, and I used to budget everything to the zero. I used to say, well, this is what I make, and this is all I can spend on these things. And God said, you're going to stop that. Now, I still keep a budget, but I don't limit myself.
Okay. And I think, sorry, I want to get in there because I'm hearing myself asking the question, how do I not overspend, and how do I not be reckless but not have a limitation? Where is the line there in really trusting God and not being reckless? Because, yeah, for me, if I don't have a limitation, I can just, go back into debt, and I can just have this nice, beautiful money-filled life. I think I just kind of answered my own question, because if I live, the responsibility comes into not having the debt. Sorry, I just answered myself, but I don't know if you want to comment.
Oh, no, you're fine. And that's exactly it. If you have to step into the debt to have that, then that right there is a boundary. Again, there's certain things that we need in our lives, and you're going to have to get into some debt, and that's okay. Like, don't tie a shame to it. Just don't make it your God. That's it. You don't make it that's the only source that you depend on. But he does make us good stewards. He says that, does he not? That we are good stewards. And so we know what we can and what we can't. So my dream car is an Audi R8. I mean, it's a sports car. It's like $200-something thousand. Am I going to go buy that right now? No. Will it come? Yes. I will have that car someday, and I will pay it cash. But at this moment, I know that I can't, because he hasn't provided that yet. But I don't limit. And notice how I said he hasn't provided yet. And that's something that I taught in my course. I said, it's not if, it's when. Because the moment you say if, now you're putting a doubt to it. Now you're putting a limitation to it. But when, it can happen. It can happen in a year. It can happen in 10 years. It doesn't matter to me. He's allowed me to dream. And something I want to say is never be afraid to dream, because those dreams can become reality. And why not? Why not?
Just do it.
Yeah.
Yummy, 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 yummy. You are gorgeous, my friend. And thank you.
I love you
so much for this time today. It just, I just feel a whole lot better.
Yes.
Thank you, Jess. Thank
you.
And we will also do this again at some point. Maybe next time everyone can join us. So have a beautiful, beautiful Monday. And please post some journaling prompts on the group for everybody else.
Yeah, I will.
I love you.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.